And welcome to another Biddle on August 24th, 2019. How's everybody doing?
Yeah,
good.
Doing well.
Fantastic.
I'm good.
Well,
Great.
Fantastic, yes. So it would be nice if we could get a sound check from the YouTube chat to make sure that my levels are not really as loud as, overbearing from everybody else, because the past few episodes I've been having some real filter issues with OBS, and it's been making my mic go all kind of whacked out.
So now you've had a chat, let me have a chat, and then they compare the two volumes.
There. Do it. All right. So this week we are trying out Regolith Linux, which is an Ubuntu-based i3 window manager distro. So, I have seen really great comments and really not great comments in the Telegram chat throughout the week, but we're going to get everybody's opinion on it. So, Zeb, I know you've been waiting for this for a very long time, so I would like to get your opinion first. So, how do you like it?
Well, let's start off with the positives. Okay. The live USB works straight out of the box. I didn't have to do any messing around with NVIDIA, so that was a nice plus. It runs Ubuntu. So
Is that all the positives?
I'm sorry, but yeah, that's the only positives you're going to get. Now, this is not the fault of Regolith. This is just me and i3. Whoever thinks that a tiling window manager is how to use a computer in 2019, I just really don't get how that person's brain process works. I've got 3 4K monitors. So when I open up Zoom, why do I want the Zoom chat window 4K on one of my screens? I want it as a little box in the corner so I can just read the chat. When I open up participants, why do I want it to suddenly make 2 half full screen applications? It's just a complete waste of real estate. So I worked out how to get my screens configured how I wanted to. I open up all the applications I want, and then I open up about 40 terminals. So I've got all these little windows scattered all over the place. And then I slowly shut the terminal windows one by one until I've got the size of applications I want. And then I mess around with the move it left and move it right. And what I don't get is, and maybe somebody else can explain, I've got 4 vertical windows in front of me on my screen. And I say, no, I don't want it vertical. I want it horizontal. Why on earth do I get a flaming great horizontal thing along the top and then 3 small windows at the bottom? There's 4 screens on the window. 4 screens equals 4 squares. Yes, not a rectangle and 3 bits at the bottom. It's just mind-blowingly weird. So that's and some of the key bindings don't work, but I know some of you cleverer i3 guys will want to talk about that. So does it work? Yes. Is it my workflow? Hey, hell will freeze over first. It's just i3. In fact, now let's just open this up a bit. Window managers for me just don't work. Sorry, I cannot comprehend wanting to have to Windows shift up left. Oh, hang on a minute. No, and if I could get it floating and resize them, I'd love it. I think it'd be quite good. But that doesn't work on the key bindings, and I'm not going to go editing config files to get it right. So Regolith, lovely installer, great base, i3 not for me.
Well, Zeb, I for the exact reasons want to get used to i3. I think that I would be a perfect use case for it. I just haven't had time this week to dive deep into the shortcuts and making everything work. I installed it, and I actually I had problems with the install, I'm going to say. It would not give me a UEFI bootloader when I went on the USB. So I installed it on the non-UEFI, which then it didn't show up in the grub menu. So long story short, I ended up installing Ubuntu proper and then putting the PPA on, and doing it that way, and that works fine. And like I said, I would love to spend more time with it, and hopefully this week I'll be able to spend a little bit more time with checking it out and get used to it.
That's strange, because for me, the installer worked perfectly. It was just a typical Ubuntu install. So, yeah, it's good.
I always find the problems. That. All right, Tony, sir, how did you get along with Regolith?
Well, it installed fine. And as you said, it's just a typical Ubuntu installer. I didn't like Windows managers. I think I'm similar to Zeb. It's not really my cup of tea. I'm not a shortcut keyboards type of guy. I'm a mouse, click this, click that, things open, and you can do what you want. Nothing against Regolith. It was snappy when I did manage to get things to work. One of the biggest problems I found, which is just my personal issue, not knowing how to use it, was that I lost the list of keyboard shortcuts. And it wasn't until I watched the video that Eric did, thank you, Eric, it showed me how to get that back. And then I was able to open up things and do other bits with it. And it was snappy, it's smooth. It worked a lot better than some other versions of Linux that I've tried in that respect, but it's not something I'd want to use. It's just not for me. I played with it for about probably 2 or 3 hours, and then I thought, no, enough is enough. It's too much hard work for me. But it was okay. No complaints.
Oh, just as a by the by, I am running it tonight. So we are producing this on Regolith.
I'm definitely not.
Okay, Joshua, how has your week been with Regolith?
All right, so I've been lobbying for Regolith, and I'm really excited and glad that I got to do it. So I'll give you my whole experience. Some was a little bumpy, some was actually pretty smooth. So it began with trying to install it. For those who don't know, I'm a GNOME boxes boy, and it just didn't work. It just kept on freezing. So even giving it like pretty much like 90% of my memory on the computer, it still freezes. I'm like, seriously? So I gave it one more shot in VirtualBox, and then it works. But I'm not really that angry at the team for it, because I know it's a thing. Roger that, Barbara. So then once I installed it, I realized, oh my, it's not green. It's blue. It's a miracle. So I figured, all right, well, at least I'm going to have a nice theme to go with this. And I was actually pretty delighted. After learning the 50,000 i3 commands, well, it actually wasn't really that hard. I was pretty much able to run on terminal. So after that, I decided there's a potential for this to replace GNOME if I just install a bunch of panel software and whatever. So I figured, let's try to make a Unity layout. And once I finally set up Mate Tweak or whatever it is for the Mutiny layout, then because of the expand option, which will make the panel be on the left or right, you have to use the expand option, and then right click on the desktop and it'll just be like add to panel. And also it blocks the main icons and application from i3 starting. So I ended up deleting it, and I decided, all right, so the team has a PPA for it for Ubuntu users, and I decided to install it, and I found it as a great experience. And I thought, it's not going to be my main, but I'll say it has potential in it. It's not green. It's pretty unique. Although it can be a little beefy to learn, I think, yeah, there's a lot of potential in it. So, congratulations.
Nice. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, Mr. Positivity, Nate, how did you get on with i3?
So I've only just begun my journey with i3, so I can't give you a full review yet. So I do want to say it's been a lot of fun so far, and I'm not going to steal anybody's thunder, but Eric did a really awesome video on it, and I really enjoyed that. And so that's actually because of this video, I want to play with it a little bit more. But so far, I think it's been fun. I can see some use cases for it. Probably not for my regular thing, but I can definitely see some use cases for like, like server monitoring, or if I had like, if I had like a really cool server room, that would be what I would use. So, but right now, I'm gonna have to push that off until next week until I can spend a little bit more time in it to really give you my full thumbs up. But it's going to be 2 thumbs up. It's just going to be that way for me. But let's move on next week when I can actually give you something more substantial.
So I just pictured the Nate's version of the Bat Cave. It's like a bunch of monitors, and split terminals and stuff scrolling by, and yeah, I can see it.
Oh yeah, yep. Eric's got it. He nailed it. Right on the nose.
Just a quick reminder, Nate. Control S. When you're halfway through your typing your article, save it. Don't dump it again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, I'm actually going to use the Barbara Harris method, and I'm doing it all on a text document first.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure. So Barbara is kind of sort of my she's my mentor, my Jedi master, whatever you want to call it.
Awesome. Dan, welcome back to Biddle.
Hey, thanks.
We missed you, man.
I missed being here. Yeah, been busy.
All right. So i3, dude. Come on.
I did. I installed it on the test machine, and I actually used it quite a bit. I like it. I have some things, little nitpicky things, but I think I could keep using it and get it to where I want it to be. One of the little nitpicky things is I'm not a big fan of the suckless tools, the ST and D menu and stuff like that. So I think I'd swap those out with something else for maybe like Albert for the run menu. And it has no terminal on it, so I could probably get by with that. So that's just a little nitpicky thing. I think I could probably get by with what's there. But the other thing I noticed that, so we talked about or hinted on, the key bindings are a little different than your normal i3. So if you're used to i3, it's not going to be familiar for you. So then you're going to go in there and you're going to put your own config in there and whatnot. And almost you ask yourself, you've done all this customization, what's the point? And that's kind of the way i3 goes, is you do a lot of your own personalization and whatnot on it. It's a living thing that just kind of keeps going in order to be useful for you, because everybody has a different use case. So I liked it fine. It's built on Ubuntu, which is pretty awesome. There's nothing else like that out there, so that's pretty great. And I'll probably keep using it for the next week and keep tweaking on it personally.
Very nice. Very nice. Colin, sir, how are you?
G'day, Rocco. How's it going?
Awesome. Is i3 awesome? Is Regolith awesome, dude?
Well, after I finished staring at the screen for the first couple of days, just wondering, what was I going to do? Because I have to say it was complete confusion for me to start with. But I've settled in. I've adjusted the config file as suggested on their website under the troubleshooting area, and I've managed to put my own little configs in there for a simple screen recorder. And when I open that up, it opens automatically in Workspace 5. So with Alt and S. Alt and S. So, and also opening my own file manager up with Alt F, because everything else is done with Super Key. So I thought I would use the Alt key, which is the mod 1, as suggested in the config file right up the top. So I've been messing around with that. It's just, difficulty today with Zoom because it opens up a few windows and I wasn't sure what I was doing with the windows in Zoom. So I found that quite difficult, but I've managed to close the windows I don't want, and I'm using Super 2 to go to the chat and Super 1 back to the screen looking at you guys. So I think after a little time, you get used to it. I think if it was the only one available, I could probably live in it, no problem at all, because it's like anything. You use it every day, you'll get used to it. But for me, the choices are abundant in Linux, and a different desktop to i3 is definitely the way I'd like to go. I don't think I could live in this. It's like anything, you would get used to it after time, but there's plenty more choices out there that I'd like to use. And, when I'm sitting down eating a slice of toast, I like to just click and go. So, I'll use an i3. If you got the little bit of the crummy toast on your fingers, you're messing up your keyboard there. And that's another reason why I probably wouldn't use it. So
I think the differences that we have to look at here is the differences between what our feedback is towards Regolith itself and what it is towards i3, because a lot of us here are not used to using i3. So not all of this is going to be directed at Regolith specifically. It will be directed at i3 and some of the features in it. So.
Yep. Well, actually, the reason why I can work with it is because it has the GNOME system within it as well, and also so you can sort of theme it. It's got the tweaks tool in there and all that. So it does have that mixture. If it was completely i3, I'd probably be even more lost. So at least you do have a certain amount of normality within it outside of the i3. So it's just getting used to the floating windows to try and use that. So windows are a little bit more normal. And I have to agree with Zeb, you can adjust window sizes, but they seem to just run with the size of the screen rather than being able to adjust them as a square and scale them evenly. So I find that a bit frustrating as well. So that's all to do with i3. And I think you're better off to use workspaces rather than try and adjust windows and stuff. That's what I've been doing. So I'm just going from one workspace to another. I find that quite simple. It's Super 1, Super 2, Super 3, Super Duper. That's easy.
Okay, I'm just a little confused here because you're talking about theming. I've got 15 borderless windows. What is there to theme?
No, you can theme. No, you can
inside it. I can't see any borders. I can't see any maximize, minimize, close. So what are you thinking?
No, I'm theming the file manager, themes, and also the if you open up the tweaks that can be themed. The file manager, I'm using the Quagga Win at the moment, and that looks quite good. So let me check. Hang on just a minute. Alt F should have. There's my file manager. Oh well, it's not themed to what I wanted it to, but.
Oops. I'll jump in here for a sec. That was one of the reasons why I like GNOME Terminal, is because you can set some opacity there, so you can kind of see the wallpaper and stuff behind. So I mean that brings the theme of the distro out, even though you got a full screen terminal window.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Colin.
No worries. You're welcome.
Ken, I'd like to introduce Ken Gilmer he is the developer behind Regolith. How you doing?
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hey, Ken.
Awesome.
All right. Well, we are so happy to have you here because it's always awesome to see the people that put the hard work in behind the scenes. So appreciate you being here, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. So can I ask you why you started developing Regolith?
Yeah, it's kind of covered in like the motivations page on the website, but I've been, coding for 20, 25 years, and I kind of started on Windows in the 90s, and then I was playing around with Linux for a while in the early 2000s, but ultimately kind of got sucked into the Mac because it was just such a sweet combo of, hardware and software. And I did all my development on Mac for about a decade. And then Apple came out with this hardware that I just didn't like. And I just didn't really have any options. It was basically at the end of using an Apple computer. And I realized that all this time I had spent learning about the operating system and learning all the ins and outs and getting proficient at it, I just kind of had to abandon that. And it really upset me that that's what was going on with my situation. And so I obviously wasn't going to use Windows. And so I just remember like Linux always changing all the time. And it's always all this chaos about, configuration and what setup I'm using. And one thing that was great about the Mac was that it just worked and I didn't really have to think about it too much. And so I wanted that same experience on Linux. And because the companies I work for end up, if they let me use Linux, it's going to be Ubuntu. So it's really not a personal choice that I use Ubuntu. It's just that I want to use Linux at work, and that means Ubuntu for me. And so I kind of got, i3 working, and I kind of, was on Reddit with all the Unix porn and thinking about all like the different ways of customizing it. And I just noticed there was a lot of people that had a hard time getting it set up and configuring it. And I was interested in kind of helping other people that may want to get set up with a tiling window manager, but may not have like the technical expertise to compile things, or may not just have the patience or the time. Maybe they have the capacity to do it, but they just don't have the time. And so I just thought it would be a fun project. And so I took kind of my customizations and the things that I thought that were compelling and minimal, and I packaged them up. And I was, self-taught Debian packaging. Like I've made every mistake in the book a million times. I'm by no means an expert at Debian packaging, but I've kind of gotten it to work here and there. And it's been a great experience, and I'm definitely happy that I've done it.
Well, that's pretty awesome, dude. Look, putting out a distro of any kind is no easy task. There's a lot of work involved, so it's much appreciated.
Yeah, honestly, it's like I'm just kind of putting things together. Like all the hard work is being done by, the people that do the window manager, all the styling, all of the, really I'm just kind of a curator. I'm more like taking things that I think are good and editing things that I don't think are so good. And so like, for example, like with the terminal opacity, like my personal belief is that I want to be able to read my terminal characters. So I don't want anything mangling my characters at all. I know a lot of people like that. And so a lot of the I guess the aesthetic choices I've made for Regolith, I realize those are very, they're my opinions. And I'm at this point now, a lot of the work going into Regolith is to make it easier for people to like change things out and tweak it and make it their own at a level that's higher than, like what I would call like the Linux master, who knows everything about, the system D, and they can compile everything from source, and they can write Perl like it's like, like English, and like, so there's those people, and those people will do whatever they want anyway. There's no point in doing anything for them because they'll do it for themselves. But there's this other class of people that may want to use a system like this, but don't have the capacity. And that's kind of, who the kind of user I'm thinking of. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do with distributing this for others.
Well, Eric, you had a question about the choice of shortcut keys, or you had a comment about the shortcut keys.
Yeah, so for me, using i3 elsewhere, and then also using just being sort of used to, there is a default set of keyboard shortcuts.
Yeah.
It's your muscle memory, it throws you off that there are different shortcuts. And I think if you're coming into this cold and you've never used it before, then that is perfectly fine. It doesn't matter. But if you have the experience and you have that muscle memory of where where your fingers should be and how to switch, and you're hitting the wrong thing, I mean, it's just, it can be really frustrating, and you can adjust, and that's fine. But I question the wisdom of doing that for someone like me who's already maybe had a little experience with i3, that might find something like that to be disruptive more than advantageous. I mean, I think some of the things you've chosen, like full screen with F instead of what's the default key bindings and things. So I mean, there's logic to what you've done. I'm not saying that it's just haphazard, but it is just a little jarring to be that different.
What's like the worst one for you?
Probably the switching the floating windows around and stuff like that. I'm just so, instead of, I'm used to meta D for D menu, because it's just, that. So meta space should be, my window float, and instead that gives me a menu. And so it's just little things like that kind of I mean, I don't know that there's one that's more egregious than the next. I think it's all just like, and also the portability of that knowledge. So I can go across i3 on Arch or on, Manjaro or any distro that's holding those i3 shortcuts to the defaults, and kind of just have that experience across. Now they all, Manjaro does it too. Like everybody has, like I love that you added the shortcuts for control panels and settings and things like that. So some of it is absolutely right on and smart. I just think that those, especially the specific ones that you will always be using, like floating window, the method of tiling, those being different, I think is probably the most disruptive.
I see. Yeah, I think when I made those changes, it was before I knew that I was making a desktop environment. And I think a lot of why the changes had to happen, maybe not the floating window one, but like you mentioned, the control panel, I wanted, so one of my opinions is that trays are crufty old stuff, and I don't want that I don't want to see trays. A lot of people like the trays. I just am not one of them, and I just like the cleaner look without the tray. And so, but I still want the usability of being able to like configure Wi-Fi and change my displays. I plug in an external monitor. I don't want to go to this command line and start, SSHing into something to like make my screen work. So yeah, I wanted just like a key combo that would be like, oh, display is D and sound is S. And so I wanted to map like the first letter you would think of for the configuration thing you wanted to that letter. And that made me, because there's a lot of collisions, so that made me have to move other things around. And I felt that if you get back to like the users of the system, if you're a seasoned i3 user, then for you, it's probably straightforward to go into the config file and just remove what's in there and put in your own key bindings. Whereas like a new user, for me personally, I don't use floating windows, but I think that like the key combos for getting to the system settings is really probably like the frosting of the Regolith cake, in that you can just easily get things configured.
Gotcha. Well, and so besides that, the other thoughts that I had were, I'm not sure. For me, the default theme on the GTK app, so if I open Firefox, I can't read the text. It's just, there's not enough contrast. The address bar, like I literally cannot read it. So I had to switch to the dark variant that you had in the Xconfig. So I mean, again, I was able to overcome that, but I think as a default, that is maybe a little difficult for folks to use. So just some general feedback.
Totally agree. I think we're going to probably go to Nord for the color theme for the next release. And so I use Chrome, so I didn't really know. I wasn't really thinking too much about the apps. I was just kind of like, you're just going to have to deal with it on your own because it's apps. But you're right, like the defaults, because Chrome isn't installed in Ubuntu. So when you get the thing set up, like you go to a web browser and it's not great. So the first time user experience is not very good. And switching to the Nordic theme will kind of fix Firefox.
And I did that, and it does look like, I'm a big fan of that type of contrast. It's still very soft and subtle, but it's strong enough that you can easily read the text. And so, having that built in was really handy, because then I just switched to it, logged back in, and boom, it's, it was all taken care of. But I mean, so those were the negative parts. I mean, that's really all I could find. The positive stuff was, like Dan said, having the mix of the GNOME apps and the control panels, and being able, that's very familiar to an Ubuntu user, right? So that's a big plus. The high contrast of the wallpaper with the terminal itself, and then this very small gaps, I think that's a nice touch. It makes it very easy to visually sort of get around if you've got a lot of terminals open and things like that. So I think you did a really nice job with the defaults there. Your website, you've done a fantastic job with the documentation on your website. So many websites, if you're lucky, you'll get like a GitHub README style, intro to it. So I think you did a fantastic job of not only explaining your thoughts behind it, but how to use it, how to customize it. And really, for anyone that was having issues with certain things, like if you had just gone to the site you probably would have found the answer. It's that comprehensive. So congratulations on, putting the effort into that.
Thank you.
And yeah, I mean, at this point, I can really see where you're going. I do see the potential. I follow the logic of what you have done so far and what you're trying to do. Glad to hear you say that you want to have a slightly better, out of the box experience for the users, because I think that'll make a big difference. And yeah, I mean, so I spent quite a few hours using it and really there was literally no stability issues or anything like that. It was rock solid from that standpoint. So just those tiny issues there. And just as a comparison, I went and looked at, Manjaro's i3, and, it's much more built up, but they've also been producing it for many, many years. And then I did just the standard i3 meta package install on Arch, and you get 5 packages. So it's very, very slimmed down. So yeah, I think you found a nice middle ground between overdoing it and maybe making too many choices for the user and not being enough to get started with. So I think you're on the right track.
Thank you.
All right, Pizza, you had a question?
So did you expect Regolith to get as big as it did?
As big as what?
As it did?
That's popular. Yeah.
I didn't really know what would happen. It's the great thing is that it makes Ubuntu, like with PPAs, it makes it really easy to just publish stuff. And so there's no dollar investment. It's really just like, once you're kind of over the hump of like learning how packaging works, then it's a very short step from that to like just making something that, you can publish. And so I certainly wasn't expecting to like take over the world or anything like that. But also I think I probably would have been sad if like nobody ever downloaded it. So where it is now, I think is great. Like having like this level of feedback and people being interesting and just I love like when people that have little or no exposure to i3 or tiling window managers, like when something I did helps them get that and understand it, that to me is just like, it's totally worth it. So I would say like, it's exactly where I want it to be. If tomorrow 1 million people download it, then I'm probably going to need some more help. But I didn't really have any pre-existing ideas about the popularity, to answer your question.
Ivan, you're muted, Ivan.
Yeah, can you hear me well?
Yep. Go ahead.
Already then. So I enjoyed it a lot. The overall experience of it. I just had 2 questions to ask you really. One is whenever you go through the installation process, that was done through the Ubiquiti installer, right? And my question will be, is there any possibility you could add the option for whenever you're trying to install the distro, not to actually install the bootloader, or do you know how to do that, or is it too complicated?
To avoid modifying the bootloader during install?
Yeah, like let's say, well, there's a certain option during the process when you're installing, and I know Manjaro and Ubuntu Mate as well, they both have that option that you could just refrain from installing it, and that way it won't mess up with your boot options for the cases for people who are using more than one distro on the same hard drive. So I was thinking that that would be a really nice, option to put in there, to have that opportunity not to install it in case you already have a bootloader and grab handling things for another distro.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't aware of that. If Mate is doing that, I can take a look. Maybe it's easy. But if you could file an issue with the feature request, that would be helpful too.
That'll be great. Perfect. Okay.
All right, so we've got a couple of questions for you from the YouTube guys. So for the first one says, I've lost it again. Here we go. Due to your interest with Mac previously, is there any interest in incorporating Parthenon, or Pantheon rather, into Regolith for those who prefer something other than a tiling window manager?
I don't know what Pantheon is.
This whole
It's a
question makes
Windows
zero
desktop. It's a desktop environment. Yeah.
Oh,
It's a desktop environment used in elementary OS.
oh,
How does that have anything to do with the Mac experience?
Well,
Because lots of
everybody
people think
compares it.
Elementary looks like a Mac.
Yeah, they compare it to Mac OS is what they do.
It's a broken question.
No.
Probably not. I don't know. I don't know anything about it. I really, for me, I worked at a startup once where the CEO, he had this plane. Like a plane is an old tool they use to shave wood for carpentry to like make furniture. It's a very simple tool. It's just basically a blade and then a housing to hold the blade. And he would always take it to these the VP meetings and stuff and be like, the product we were building, he'd always say like, I want it to be like this because it's like simple and there's nothing you can't break and there's nothing about it that is superficial or is unessential. And I kind of think that way about Regolith. I just want it to be the basic stuff. I don't want to add any branding. I don't want to add any twinkly magic stuff. I just want it to be the simplest thing it can be. And so if whatever Pantheon is it seems like it maybe is a little more fancy. It's probably not in the same design space as Regolith, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
There's another question in chat, PZ.
Yeah. So the other one is apparently you've chosen ST, whatever that is, as the terminal,
right?
Which is a bold one. Why didn't you go with an ST build that allows scrolling and copy paste out of the box?
It actually does scroll. It's recently that you can do the mouse scrolling, scroll wheel, and you can copy and paste. You can't do find, which is like sometimes you just want to search for text in the terminal. And the SD guys, they're all like, oh, well, you should use Tmux or Screen or something if you want that sort of feature set.
I think he means on copy and paste. You can't right mouse click paste, but then you can't right mouse click most things. So
that's true. Yeah. You have to use Control Shift C and V to copy and paste.
Or I tend to use Shift Insert. That works.
And it's just essentially, I just like the minimalism of ST, and I liked it just fit well aesthetically that it didn't have any extra stuff. I just felt right. But it's also, it's a very minor change to edit your i3 config file to point it to whatever terminal you prefer. So it's not like, there's some aspects of Regolith that are really hard to change, like the GNOME integration. It's like not easy to mess with that stuff. But something like which terminal you want to use is a straightforward thing. So I don't really feel like that like ST as the default is really like that big of a deal from my perspective.
All right. Seeing as how we don't have a lot of time left in this segment, Barbara, you wanted to give some of your experience this week?
Yeah. I put it on. I just put the desktop environment in. I did not, because I already run Ubuntu. And definitely just for me, the tiling window manager isn't it doesn't work for me, but I think it's really kind of cool. But I did notice a couple things, and I wanted to mention these. And it has nothing to do with, what I think of it or whatever. These are just things I came across. One of the things is that Regolith changed my monitor settings on my laptop from 120 hertz down to 60. And I didn't even try using it with a second monitor because I don't always do that when I'm just playing around with stuff. And that was something that I think you should know. I wondered why it happened, or
yeah, I have no idea. That's the first time I've heard
that was on a Dell. That was on an HP Envy 17-inch. So it's not like it was some kind of weird obscure laptop.
Sure.
Yeah, and so I don't know about that. That's something that you might want to look into, or find somebody who's really good at dealing with that kind of a hardware issue. And then another thing, let me see, I made some notes here. Oh yeah, Chrome is when you click on the browser for the key bindings for the browser, it comes up with Chrome. It does, even though I have Firefox as my default browser. I don't know if there's some way that you can have it checked to see which is the default browser, as opposed to, what would have happened if I didn't have Chrome on there? Because I use it for one thing, and because that it only runs on Chrome.
Yeah, there is some underlying logic in the package called, I can't remember now. I was looking at it a couple of days ago, but there's this Ubuntu way of determining what browser you're supposed to use. Regolith doesn't customize that at all, but other people have also noticed some weirdness about what browsers are being loaded from various applications. I'll have to take a look.
Yeah, because I would wonder what would happen if you didn't have Chrome or Chromium installed. Didn't have either one of those. What would happen?
It's like a setting or like a key that that gets provided by the browser, and it's called www-browser, and it's supposed to identify the browser being used by the system primarily.
Okay, and there's one other thing, and this is something I didn't notice until a few days after. I had installed it on two different, just the desktop environment, on two different computers. And when I removed it, I thought, oh, good, it's all removed, whatever. But I kept getting like this when my screen would lock.
Yeah.
And I can't undo it no matter what I do. I got rid of everything that says Regolith in the machine after removing it by following your procedures. And that drives me nuts. But that's...
I'm happy to help you fix your computer, Barbara. It's there's some things I've done that I shouldn't have done.
I love it. I love it.
When you install by PPA, it does use the G settings program to change some of your preferences. And one of the things it changes is your lock screen background and your desktop background.
Okay, so I can go in, I can find out where those are and change those.
If you run GNOME Tweak Tool, it's very easy to change it.
Okay, good. That's what I needed to know. And one other thing, when you go through, and this is something that I think some people get really weirded out by. When you go in, this was after I had removed it, and I went back in a couple days later because I wanted to fix the screen thing. And I noticed that there were a whole bunch of directories. It was like 45 directories and some associated files that all were Regolith specific that didn't get removed when I removed the PPA and supposedly had removed the whole desktop environment. So I had to go in and, I set up a little script and I removed them that way. But they were specific Regolith directories.
Right. So what happened is in July, I made some changes and I had the idea that configuration files should never be deleted or modified by Regolith. But also I like the idea that Regolith would just write into your user directory so that things just worked the first time.
Right.
And you can't really do that, I found. And Linux in general has a way of dealing with this problem. Essentially, default configuration files should live in the etc tree. And then if you care as a user to change it, you need to copy it yourself to your user directory and then make your changes. And I felt that was too hard and I wanted to do it my own way. And so my own way was creating a new configuration file or a new directory and prefixing the version of the package for that version so that I knew that I would never be overwriting some older version or something that someone had customized. But one of the things it results in is thousands of files that like you don't know what's going on and you're trying to find out which config file you need and there's 30 of them in your directory and you don't know which one it is. So it was definitely a mistake on my part and I didn't really think through it. And so I've ripped all that stuff out now and there's been like some friction and people have been unhappy about it, but I basically have gone back to the standard Linux way of dealing with things where if it's an etc, it's from me, and if it's in your user directory, it's your deal.
So, okay, yeah, those are the couple things that I wanted to make sure you knew about it. For me, it was definitely overall, it was an experience that reminded me of going back to the days of an IBM using a 3270 terminal. And that was the one thing. But I said, okay, I can deal with that. I'm not a Windows manager type person. I like my gazillion screens. But that's just me. That's because it's a lot simpler in some respects in its display. But overall, I think, it's really kind of cool. It's just not my thing. I do have one quick question. Why did you, when you switched from Mac, was it before they went to Intel?
It was when they added the garbage. It was the first Intel, the giant 17-inch MacBook is when I started with Mac.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what I was just curious. I think a couple of people were curious about that.
In regards to the adding and deleting of new and old config files, it's something you may be able to look into. I believe apt has support for this. Is when things are getting installed, you can have apt checked for existing config directories, and if they're there, it won't overwrite them, and if they're not, it'll put them in there. And I think the same will go for deleting them as well. You can have it checked first before it does it.
Okay. I think the issue is that when apt runs, it runs as root. And if your configuration files are in your user directory, there's no way for me to know who you are. And it'd be weird if I even tried.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I didn't think about that.
Okay, I think Dan had a question, Rocco, if we've got time.
Yep.
Okay, I'll try and keep it short. What happened to me was one morning I got up and took my computer out of sleep mode. And the night before I had been using it for online streaming and stuff like that. And all of a sudden I get this message that pops up as a notification. I'm trying Regolith, and it came from Derek and stuff like that. And I got it installed, and where is this coming from? Well, it comes to find, I found out that it was coming from Discord. When you use the super key shift Q to shut down Discord, it doesn't really shut it all the way down. You have to actually use HTOP to completely kill it. And this is because you don't get the Discord little icon down in the task tray like you normally would on Cinnamon or XFCE or something like that. I just thought I'd bring that out in the open. If you're using Discord, you really need to kill it.
So I got a solution for you, Dan. Discord supports in-app quit keybinds. So if you use Control Q inside of Discord, it'll tell Discord to quit directly.
Okay.
Telegram is the same way.
Yeah, there's some things I'm still figuring out.
All right, we are not going to have time for everybody, but we're going to get to who we can. Ivan, you wanted to go this week?
Yes, Rocco. Thank you for the opportunity. So, I enjoyed the overall experience. I've used Manjaro i3 in the past, and I think, to me, it was really cool to have the opportunity to use it on top of Ubuntu pre-configured, because I haven't seen any other distro that does it on top of Ubuntu, so I do appreciate that. I was dual booting with Manjaro, so that's why I was telling you before about that. Other than that, I was going through the installation process. I booted up, and first, when I first boot into it, I really loved that you added the actual welcome screen that Ubuntu has. And so, there was just one thing that to me was missing from that screen, which is the option to let you install some basic packages or applications. I know most distros now are doing it, so I just wanted to point that out, that it would be a really user-friendly option to add. That's just personal opinion, but for someone who's getting into a distro, they don't know how to manage, they don't know how to move around the windows and all that. So I was thinking that perhaps it is not too much to ask to actually add an install software option with a couple of packages that are available for you to get started. That'll be really, really, really nice. Another thing that I was trying out was once I booted up into it and start using it, I took a look at the shortcut conky that you had on the side, and I really enjoy when people provide those like instructions for i3 for beginners, because I've been there, done that with Manjaro. I know it is quite useful. I think it could use a little bit more polishing, in the sense of perhaps having a shorter section right there, so that you don't have to go through so many overwhelming options. And perhaps I might agree with Eric in the sense that I found it, well, not really that necessary for all the configuration shortcuts that you had over there. So I would really appreciate just having the map plus C, I think it was, to access the configuration all, since actually the actual window will display all those other options that you had on the conky file. So I think that'll be a really nice addition to that. But other than that, I really enjoyed it. I think for some reason it was still not as fast as I would expect it to be, but that's just me coming from using it on Manjaro, that is really fast. But other than that, I really loved the implementation of it, and I think you did a fantastic job with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vince, sir.
Hi, everyone. I just want to say it's just a fantastic distribution that you've done there. Just on the shortcut keys, I noticed that some people were tripped up earlier this week with the conky, with, for example, exiting i3. In the conky, it just goes to say, I think it was super and then a capital E. Whereas in fact, you actually need to do super shift E. And I think I get where you were going with that, with the shortcut. But I think some people didn't realize that you needed to press shift as well. I think that might be something you could maybe improve.
Thank you.
Another thing also is that I hope we're expecting a new ISO release soon as well, because I was with some other people, we got tripped up a little bit with the way you changed where the config files were. I've been using i3 for a while now, so I kind of, when I first installed it, I found I think the Regolith i3 config directory. But then I realized that when I was changing everything, it wasn't actually taking. And then I realized when I looked at the website that you changed the where it was configured.
Yes, yeah, that's the problem I was just mentioning. Like, I've been moving things around quite a bit in the last month, and it's been ruffling a lot of feathers, and I'm very sorry. And I just wanted to get it right as soon as possible, because the longer it was in this weird state, the more people were going to be having a problem. So I did make a lot of changes, and it is confusing. It's like probably July was probably a bad month for Regolith in terms of like stability, but I'm hoping from now on things are smoother.
Otherwise, I really loved it. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
So when do you plan the next release for Regolith?
Actually, I just emailed out to the mailing list today that we are planning a release. There's a GitHub project that defines all the tickets that need to be resolved before we can ship a release. And the biggest thing is there's a thing called Base 16, which is a schema and builder for describing thematic colors in a consistent standard way. And I would like to use that in Regolith, so that in addition to like there being a convention for how you map a color to a thing, that we would just get like probably 30 or 40 different color themes out of the box, just that you could install, just to set in Regolith immediately. That's like the big kind of probably user-facing change. The other thing is that Regolith has been very Ubuntu specific, and there's other people that would like to use the same desktop on Fedora or other distributions like Debian. And I want to make that as easy as possible. So I'm kind of trying to make things as standard as possible and removing things that don't make sense, like changing the the GDM theme when you install from PPA, and just a lot of cleanup stuff so that when people do want to try to move it or port it to a different distro, that it's easier to do that. I would expect probably sometime next month to have a new ISO out.
Very nice. Everybody that, we do a lot of distros and we talk to a lot of projects. Is there anything that, you need as far as help, donations, anything in that area?
Just the feedback that everybody has is great. I think that through the community, there's been several pull requests that I've gotten from various people, and another person, Leo, from New Zealand, he's kind of definitely been helping out a lot. He's kind of taking on his own projects. And so I think, if Regolith makes sense for people to use and there's going to be a subset of those people that care to contribute back, I think just the open source way is working. And I've chosen to basically only rely on infrastructure that's free and try to keep that as minimal as possible. I'm not really marketing or branding or, I'm really just like trying to make it as good as possible. And if people like it, then great. And if they have something else they like, that's great too. So I don't really have like, any real needs in that regard, just feedback. And, if things aren't working right or things are weird, I'd love to hear about it. Thank you.
Well, I know you said that, the base does a lot of the work, but I'm sorry, I do believe that there's a lot of work that you put into Regolith. Again, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, but I think it was really like work that I wanted to do for myself. And then I realized that after I'd done all that work, that I could, if I did a little bit more, then I could, export that or, publish that in a way that other people could consume it too. So I'm just trying, the reason I say that is just because it wasn't like I started this as this kind of like brave, like selfless, like goal of building something for others. It was really just like, I wanted something for myself and then felt like, oh, maybe other people would like this as well.
But that's perfect. That's a perfect thing and a perfect reason to start Regolith. It doesn't have to be this, high idea. Giving back to the community is exactly what you're doing. We have exactly 1 minute. Okay, we may have a couple, give or take a minute. Does anybody want to go this week before next week? Matt, I know you do. Go ahead. Thanks.
So mean, Rocco. So mean.
There you go.
All right. Troll just got trolled.
Derek, welcome to Biddle. This is your first time here.
Thank you, Rocco.
Can you give us your experience with Regolith?
Well, at first, for me, it was overwhelming because I've came from KDE and GNOME background. I've also used I've used E before when I was first using Linux back in the 90s, but it took a little bit of getting used to the flow of it. But it actually got me to try i3 directly on Manjaro, which I've now have on 2 out of the 3 machines I have in my house. And but the one thing I like more on the i3 side is the keybinds are a little bit more comfortable for me. Of course, I spent a little bit more time on working on my keybinds myself. But I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to continuing trying it later this week too.
Very nice. All right, that is going to wrap up our segment on Regolith Linux. Ken, I really appreciate you being here, brother.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
You are more than welcome to come back next week if you have the time, because we will be giving our second week of thoughts on it, our final thoughts on Regolith.
Sounds good.
All right. If anybody has any questions about Regolith, Eric had mentioned that there is a wonderful documentation on the Regolith website that I will post in the YouTube chat. So if you're trying Regolith and you need help, you can either do that. You can contact us through the Telegram group, and one of us will be able to help you out. But other than that, we're going to go for another week with it.
Sounds good.
All right, on to the next topic. And that has to be PZ. PZ, you were at some type of show this week, some type of event. Can you tell us about it?
I was, yes. Thanks to connections via Destination Linux, I got to meet the community manager for Pine 64. And they had a meetup recently in Hyde Park in London where I think it's TJ Lim. I don't know if it's Mr. Lim, but anyway, he always puts his name down as TJ Lim. The founder flew over from America and brought a couple of goodies with him. Now, I'd already seen the Pinebook Pro, as you know, because I had the chance to play with a prototype. But he turned up and he had a very, very basic Pinebook or a Pine Pro phone with him, and that's going to be his next project. So we had the opportunity to chat to the man, and he really, we all talk about Linux is really bad at advertising and self-promotion and all the rest of it, but here was a man who couldn't care less about that sort of stuff. His passion was literally the technology, how to put it all together, and how to make a really good but affordable netbook type thing, for want of a better expression. But for me, the Pinebook Pro is much more than just a netbook. For me, it's a really good, cheap, for me, fully fledged processor. It might be some people class as a slightly weak processor, but I don't think, or a computer, but I don't think so. I think it works really, really well. But what was fascinating is what they're going to be doing is for every Pinephone that they sell, they have automatically built in a $10 donation. So you're going to pay $150 for this phone. That $10 will be added up, and when it comes to $200, they're going to give away a Pinebook Pro to a needy person, whether that's an individual or an organization. And he's hoping that there's going to be enough phones sold that they can give at least 100 Pinebooks away a year.
Well, send them my way because I'm a needy person.
Yeah.
So
I'll buy a phone.
Is that how, I mean, we've all related to wanting a Linux phone a long time. How close, how close is it?
He's still only on the prototype. It was really strange because I think there's a picture of it on on Twitter, because when he first turned up and he got this phone out of the bag, I'm thinking, wow, he's going to have an Ethernet port on a phone. Are you real? This thing is going to be like a brick. But then I realized that was just his development platform, that he had the screen on top. So he's got the thing built. He's just still working on the operating system. Now, one of the things that he did say is he's not going to take Lineage and then fork it, which is what E Corporation have done. E Corporation have taken Lineage OS and then completely stripped out all of the Google stuff. So you just literally, and it's really interesting because they haven't stripped it out. What they've done is they've just tricked it in to think it's running, but it never gets anywhere. I don't understand the technicalities behind it, but it's really, really clever. But he has said this will actually be a built from the bottom OS for the phone. And he's looking at maybe having the first betas available in the first quarter of next year.
So awesome.
Yeah.
So awesome.
I think having Dalton on Destination Linux was a really interesting episode for me. So I'm a patron and I got to stay and hang out and talk to him about, UB ports and what they're looking at with the Pinephone. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be $150. It will not be a flagship phone. I think if you set your expectations properly, that it is going to be a solid device for that price point. And particularly in light of other Linux phones that have recently become available. So I'm really excited, and especially having talked to Dalton, like I said, I think it's going to be a really great product, and hopefully there will be enough interest that Pine says, well, maybe let's see what a slightly upmarket model might look like. I mean, it would be amazing to see, we've got System 76 and some other vendors that are working really hard on Linux hardware for PC. And if there could be some modicum of success for Pine, I think maybe that would be enough encouragement. Zeb, you're saying that, TJ's got enough sort of passion and interest in already just in the prototype phase. So I think if he gets good feedback and the sales are decent, like that would be amazing to see them continue forward and really, yeah.
Yeah, and to tell you the level of tech that this guy's involved in, his personal friend is the founder of OnePlus.
No, there you go.
So this guy has got connections everywhere, and that's why he understands that 150 isn't a lot of money. But then he also understands that 800, which has just been touted as a phone, is an awful lot of money for technology that's 3 or 4 years old.
Yeah.
So there's a complete difference. But thankfully, he's found in Eric, his community manager, someone who does know about promoting the product properly. And if you go onto Twitter and you subscribe to Pine64, there's a fantastic article that explains it much, much better than I do, how they're going to do this donation and give back to the community. Because he said, without the community, I wouldn't be able to fund my passion. So he's really that, is altruistic the right word, where he wants to just give back to everybody who gives to him?
Yeah. I think it's really awesome that there's a company like Pine64 that is looking to do really community work, helping out, people that do actually need tech and whatnot. And the fact that they do understand that $150, whatever your currency is, essentially for those that can afford it, is almost impulse buy territory for most of us. Unlike a lot of other companies that are putting out $800 phones, which...
Right. Well, Eric, you had said about if you keep your expectations right. I mean, I think that the hardware can come later, I guess, is what we are so dying to have our hands on a Linux phone that actually works properly. I don't know if we would be able to contain our expectations in that area, but I think we would be okay with something even at a lower spec if it worked and it met the needs our basic needs that we have. So I'm really excited about it, dude.
And it don't spy on you.
Well, that's what I was going to say. The biggest problem right now for UBports and the other teams is they're having to battle the specifically set up hardware that everybody else already has. So that's what really interests me about the Pinephone is, are we actually going to see them really fully realize their projects instead of having to fight with the hardware to figure out how they can make whatever it is in the phone work?
Vash, that was part of what Dalton was saying, how the hardest part is the radio itself. So to have that radio, it has its own kernel, its own instruction set, it has its own memory and processor. It's a separate little component that's living, and they only have so much access to it because of the way that it's built. And so you're right. I mean, there are definitely challenges in that space in particular that make it difficult to deliver something that is, I mean, you're competing against billion-dollar companies who are, bringing out their flagship products every year, and then, whatever down market stuff they're making, and they're building at a scale that is, impossible for a company like Pine. So if they can turn out a phone that works, first of all, just sort of covers all the bases at that price point, that's going to be an unbelievable achievement.
Yeah, that's kind of fantastic. And the other thing that I forgot to mention as well is, believe it or not, Pine64 has 0 employees. So there's no people cost. Every single penny that Pine64 makes goes back into the technology side of the company.
So Zeb, then who's doing the they're using what? I think, isn't it KDE or something? Or maybe I'm mixing it up with somebody else. But for their version of Linux, who's developing that?
He is.
He is. Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
This is the guy who put together all the components and built the Pine 64 Pro from scratch.
Oh, okay. So he's doing the OS portion of it too.
they're also smart, Barb, because they will they've been sending kits out to Martin Wimpress, to Dalton, to Zeb's had a, I mean, they're getting them out into the community and getting interest, and so people want to port their system and make sure it runs well on their hardware. That's a really smart move on their part.
Oh, okay, that makes sense, because I couldn't imagine one person doing all of that. That would be like insane.
If I remember right, I don't know why, but I feel like I remember I read about a third Linux phone company. I can't remember the name though. I feel like I read something about that, but I might be wrong. I feel like that they're going to have Librem 5 for the flagship Pinephone for a budget, and I feel like there's a mid-range one coming, but I can't remember if I'm right.
The UB ports, which was originally Ubuntu Touch?
No.
In terms of hardware, Purism is creating the Librem 5.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is I feel like I've read about a third company.
Yeah, nothing that springs to mind immediately, but yeah, there's been lots of rumors about these sort of things happening. So I've just dropped a link in the YouTube chat for the Pine 64 blurb, and as you can see, Eric there Luke is very good at writing blurb, so he's got them covered in that regard.
Do we know what country these phones are going to be available in, or did they say?
The same as the Pinebook Pro, wherever you want to buy them from.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
But what was interesting while I was having the discussions with these guys is that the single biggest problem is getting a dispatch company to be able to dispatch the computer with batteries in them. And that's really, really strange, because there are some companies that just don't have the license to ship batteries. So they're actually struggling at the moment to find a good, cheap shipper. So it might sound a bit crazy, like you're paying £200 for a Pinebook and then £45 for shipping or something. It's because they can't, or it might be £25 or $25. They can't find a really cheap person who's got a license to ship the batteries. So that's a struggle, which is quite strange.
Well, if you're out there, shipper, and you see this, reach out to them.
Yeah,
because we all want one at least.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well-
when can we get our hands on it? When?
Yeah.
Even the Pinebook. When can we get our hands on it?
Well, as of tomorrow morning, you can order a Pinebook. The problem is the first 200 have already been sold to people who have been following the forums for ages and ages and ages. The next 1,700 have already been sold with forwarding of orders. However, unlike the original Pinebook, they are ramping up production. So they say that the next time you can put an order in will be in September, and then you should be able to. But if I was you and you want one, place an order now, and then just wait for the ticket that says yours is in build. But they're not going to be like they were before. Wait until 100 people wanted them and then ask for them to be built. They're already having hundreds and hundreds and hundreds pre-built, but they've got to be careful because they've got to pay for those up front, and they've got no running costs per se. So this is all coming out of TJ Lim's pocket at the moment.
Yeah, and they're selling the Pinebook Pro at cost. So I mean, they don't really have much room for margin there.
Mm-hmm.
So out of all you guys here, who's actually going to order one?
The Pro or the phone?
Both.
I'm probably
Either
not,
one.
but I will say that I can bet that a lot of people
I
are
could
going
see
to be
myself
using
ordering
it.
one.
I think I might order one.
I'd
but
get a
like,
Pinephone if I could afford it.
Hey, Zeb,
Well-
have they mentioned anything about the ANSI keyboard variant?
Possibly, and it will be in the YouTube thing, but I wasn't really into the technical side of those sort of questions. It was just, let me get my hands on these goodies.
So I think ultimately it's still on the way. I don't think they've actually said when it's going to be available or anything like that. But I know the first pre-order batch and then the first 1,000 pre-order batch for the forums are all ISO keyboard.
I also think that the tablet, the Pine Tab, that also intrigues me.
Yep, and
Because
they
I would love to see a nice Linux, a real Linux tablet.
I agree, Barb. I agree.
Yeah.
Same here.
Well, that was also
I would get one of those too. I mean, because price-wise, it's not that bad.
Yeah, if you go and search on Twitter, you can actually find a really interesting picture of that tablet, and it had a rather unique method by which the product could stand up, and basically it's the back of the keyboard cover does a little bit of an origami trick and turns itself into a triangle.
Yeah.
And then you just rest it up against the triangle. So it
Well,
was,
I'm looking on their website at the tablet. Tablet looks pretty cool. I think I would definitely get that too. Like I need more
like we need more computers.
I could need more of this stuff, you know?
Any of
help
us
my
need more
sporting.
tech.
I would like to point out the irony that you can buy every single thing from Pine for the cost of either one top tier Android phone or one top tier
iPhone.
Yep.
Yep. I would get the phone just to see how it worked. And I know that I think on AT&T they don't care what you're running. You just have to get a SIM card.
T-Mobile and AT&T generically don't care. I have an unlocked phone and they don't care.
Yeah, because I have a Lenovo Tab 4 and I got the SIM card for it. So.
And if you run any of the resellers, so I'm on Ting and they use T-Mobile's network, and it'll be fine. The original Pinebook didn't have a lot of appeal for me, just simply because it was they stated up front, this is not a high power system. It's going to be very specialized. Yeah. And so I thought, okay, I respect what they're doing. I like the form factor. The quality was right for the price. But at $200, what they're offering for that Pinebook, I mean, that is a deal, in my opinion.
I think it's great.
That's a Chromebook chaser.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And you can get it with, if you're in the forums, I guess that you can get it with more than whatever the default storage space is and stuff like that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it will run Chromium.
No, she's talking about the 128 gigabyte memory upgrade thing, but I think that ends like tonight or tomorrow. Or something.
Okay.
So you got to order it now.
No.
If you had to been, no, specifically for the upgrade. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Chicken, you are our live stream purchaser here. You got to order all these.
Someone has to do it.
And what's really good is what's lucky for the first 200 who were on the forums is they're getting the 128 gig version free of charge.
Nice.
So they're paying for the 64 and they're getting the 128.
That's what you call a good company.
Yep.
To its community.
Yep, totally agree.
So this isn't configurable by you. This is
I think you can take it apart and
Well, one of the cool things about the original Pinebook, and I don't know if that's true of the new one, is that you could open it up and just have bought the replacement board, like the upgraded board, and you could have reused the keyboard and the screen and all of that. So I always thought that was also kind of an interesting thing where it's like, hey, you've got the case, like just put a more powerful system in it. So
the batteries like in these things, since there's not much of a board there, did they just fill it with like a massive battery? Are we good on battery?
I don't know. The battery lasted for me, and I was absolutely mullering it. It lasted about 8 hours before I had to put it back on charge. And by mullering it, what I meant was I had it hooked up via HDMI to my 4K monitor, and I had 4 YouTube videos just playing nonstop on repeat, and just see how long before it died. It was about 8 hours.
I'm writing that down. Mullering it? Is that what it is?
Mullering it. Yeah.
Mullering it. All right.
Mullering it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're having a chinwag right now about it.
That's right.
I get.
What's the etymology of that idiom?
Zeb was using an extreme picture-in-picture.
The battery on the new one is better than this one. This is the Pinebook original, and I already have my Pinebook ordered. It'll be I ordered mine in July, pretty much the day I was able to do so, and I'm a fan of this thing already. And this one has like the battery life is ridiculous. It's like at full constant usage, 7 to 8 hours. And this is like has like a 1,000 milliamp hour lower, I think, than the new one. And I already love this thing. So of course I had to get another one because I needed it.
Of course.
You got to give that one back because it was lengthy, wasn't it?
I was going to say
No, they
first,
actually gave it to me because I didn't want it.
or more like he forgot to actually give it back.
No. I asked. I offered it back, and he said, "No, just keep it."
Yeah, and I'm not sure whether it was just the prototypes or not, but the back can be taken off like the back of a smartphone. There's not like 16 million screws keeping it all screwed in, which I thought was pretty awesome. So the actual
You can do the same thing on the original Pinebooks. They just got little screws that you take out.
I didn't think there were screws on it at all, but maybe
This is the new one. The old one.
Yeah.
The Pinebook Pro has only a couple screws. This one has quite a few, but the whole back is just one piece that you can take out and mess with if you want to.
Yeah, maybe it was just his prototype, so it was easy for him to open it up and show us.
It's probably This is. I mean, the Pinebook One is the one that has a lot of screws. So they changed a lot on the new one. I mean, like the entire building process is completely changed. So they probably do have something like a lot simpler. I assume that they'd have like a couple screws, but they're not going to have as many as this one has. Like I think it has 10. Yeah, it's got 10 screws on it. But the Pinebook, I'm going to buy all the Pine stuff. Like
I want the phone.
Yeah, I want it all because I've already got the Pro pre-ordered, and then I got the. I want the phone and tablet.
I'm gonna have a collection of Pine stuff.
Michael, does that mean you're going to need to find another crowbar to open your wallet?
No, I already got it. I already got the crowbar. It's just I just wedged it in there.
Does all that Pine stuff take the same charging system?
Pretty much, yeah. The new one's gonna have support for charging. This has got like this is a barrel port charger, like this one right here.
Right.
But they also have the new one's gonna have USB Type C, so you can charge with that too.
Sweet.
But it will also have the barrel type charger.
Yeah, it'll have both.
I want to say that the tablet is micro USB, but everything else is C. The phone and the Pro are C.
Yeah.
So Matt, he doesn't need to crowbar his wallet open. He just needs another generous donor.
Exactly. I'm just helping out the Pine people. Exactly.
You're all about helping, Michael.
Is this
Well,
one?
I mean, these are great pieces of hardware, so.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yes.
I didn't have to wait for this one that much either.
Have they said when the tablet's going to be available? Is there any like?
No, the problem with that is that they are still working on, like they have a prototype and it works functionally, but they have to work on the software still. So they don't really have an idea when it's going to be. They hope to have it by the end of the year or early next year. Same thing with the phone.
What OS ships with it? Is it their own in-house?
They don't have a specific OS.
Oh, okay. So you have to get something like Ubuntu.
I'm pretty sure they're not even making an in-house OS at all.
But with the Pinebook Pro, it's going to come with the version of Ubuntu Mate.
Okay.
And there's also been a recent Twitter where they put out a request, Martin, can you help us? And he said, I would love to help you. So you can bet your bottom dollar that it's going to get better and better and better.
This one came with Ubuntu Mate as well.
Yeah.
I put Plasma on it, of course, but it came with Ubuntu Mate.
And
it's also super speed.
Plasma.
What's really cool about these things is that they also have these micro SD card things, and you can boot from those SD cards, so you can have two different systems on the same device. And for example, my favorite thing about it is that you could get one of these, like the Pinebook Pro, of course, is what I would suggest if someone's going to get it. But you can put a SD card on it, put Chromium OS on the SD card, and then have like a Chromebook or a faux Chromebook, then take it out and you have a regular Linux laptop. It's awesome.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have anything else on the Pinebook? The Pine Tab or the Pinephone?
Well, should we
just
talk
hold
about
it up for everyone? Just show them like around the computer, give them a good look at it.
Oh, you want to see this computer, the Pinebook? It's ridiculously thin. It doesn't have that many ports, but what it does have are the like necessary stuff. So it's got a couple USBs on the side. Then it's got a barrel and an HDMI on the other side. And then that's basically it. But it's also got a pretty big touchpad.
But it doesn't have a Cat5.
It looks to have like a MacBook.
Nice.
It's kind of Mac-ish, yeah. The new one's going to be black or like a charcoal gray. And I actually like the new design anyway. But this is an ANSI keyboard. The new one, first batch, is going to be ISO keyboards. And then the batch after that will be the ANSI keyboards.
Can I ask what's the difference between the keyboards? What's the difference?
They're not that different. So like, you ever see a keyboard where they have the the inner key is like slightly big. It's like this full size right here. It's a weird shape. And then there's a couple keys on the other side that's slightly different. That's basically the same. Like that's what the differences are. Everything else is the same, but like 3 or 4 keys are different. And the ANSI keyboard is the keyboard that people are used to, and that's why people don't really. That's why people are kind of against the ISO part, because it's just kind of awkward in the first time you start using it. But I got the ISO keyboard just because I want to test it in comparison, because I already have the ANSI on this one. I just want to see like how much of a difference is it.
No RJ45 jack though?
No.
Oh,
but this one,
not interested.
Well, I mean, this is
RJ11.
I mean, you're not going to be doing a powerhouse stuff with this thing anyway. This is more like a travel laptop. Like I use this for travel. Anytime I go anywhere, I use this, and I'd much prefer this over any other laptop that I have. And I have quite a few to try out, but this one is a lot lighter. It's got ridiculous battery life, and you don't really need the Ethernet. But I think the Pro either has Ethernet or it has a adapter for a USB-C to Ethernet.
If it doesn't have an adapter, you can always get a USB-C to Ethernet thing.
Yeah.
I just hate using CPU cycles to pull USB-C, including USB-C 3, and I never trust wireless. I use it every day and everything else. I don't trust it though.
It would hardly be anything for this though. Like
Doesn't have
Ethernet
an
or
Ethernet
USB
cable.
is fairly well implemented everywhere.
I don't really see why you'd want to have Ethernet on this thing, because you're not going to be, if you're at a desktop that actually has, like you're at an office, this is not a workhorse, and the new one's not really going to be a workhorse either. So if you're at an office where you have like your main system, that you'd be using that anyway. This is more like when you're traveling.
Itself is not secure. I mean, I know people can poison some of the most secure wireless connections. And you can't.
Sure, you can also poison Ethernet connections.
It's a lot.
If you get on the network, if you attack the network, you attack the network.
Yeah, but the other feature about this that they're not really shouting from the rooftops is with some simple key presses, you can completely disconnect the wireless, disconnect the microphone, and disconnect the webcam.
Yeah, and Bluetooth.
And that's not a software disconnect. That's hardware programmed into the keyboard. So even if somebody can hack the computer, unless they can hack that programming software for the keyboard, it completely disconnects you from everything.
Yeah, and it's done through the function keys on the keyboard. It doesn't have like special keys for that, but I think that the way they're doing it is totally reasonable and works. I'm okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's really awesome.
I am super excited about this thing. I want it now.
I definitely want it for when I go out doing like school projects, taking notes, writing things like.
Absolutely.
And unlike Michael's one, it's not a thin plasticky machine. It is very, very thin, but it's made of metal and it's rock solid, and the keyboard doesn't feel squishy, and the trackpad for such a cheap overall cost, the trackpad was awesome.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't get to try it yet, but it like the specs of it look really nice. And the fact that it's full metal, like, yeah, give me. But I also like the fact that the Pinephone is going to be using like post-market OS and other stuff like Ubuntu Touch, and they're being compatible with all the mobile systems, including Plasma Mobile on top of post-market. So Plasma.
Right. Give me a phone. I'll have a phone.
What distro is it shipping out with, by the way?
I don't think they're specifically shipping out with one. I think you can choose or something.
Yeah, but if you don't choose, I think they're going to send it out with Ubuntu Mate.
Mate, yeah.
With the laptop, it's going to be Ubuntu Mate for sure. Yeah. But I think I like the phone. I don't think they've chosen one, or if they will even choose one.
I think they were saying that they're waiting to see where the software is going to be and pick wait for one to be ready.
Mm-hmm. I'm also glad that they're working on making the hardware the best they can at the best like reasonable price they can, rather than also doing a excessive amount of work that's not really going to amount to much. Kind of like the Librem 5.
So Zeb,
something's wrong there?
you said he was making his own operating system for the phone. He's not using a base for anything? He's just making that from scratch, or how does that working?
Well, again, you're best off going to read the article that was on.
The article.
Yeah. Because I may have misheard what he said, but I'm pretty sure he said he was going to be building his own OS for it.
I'll check it out. Yep, no worries.
All right, Michael, I got to ask you, what's this whole Bluetooth hack thing? I keep hearing about it, but I haven't read about it.
Which one?
The latest one where everybody's flipping out about.
Well, I haven't put enough research into it to tell you exactly how it works, because it's it's another Bluetooth thing.
Okay, so my question is, maybe you don't know this, but else does. But is this something that we have to turn off Bluetooth for?
You should turn on Bluetooth anyway.
Why is that?
It's a huge battery drainer, and most people don't use it anyway.
Basically, Rocco, somebody could hack into your Wii remotes and ruin your Mario Kart game.
That is ridiculous, dude. Let's turn off Bluetooth immediately.
I mean, I just like,
Who needs that?
I mean, just like as far as Bluetooth goes, it's like how many people actually use their Bluetooth that much, and people have it on all the time.
I have mine turned
If
off.
you use a Bluetooth speaker, raise your hand. Okay,
Headset.
so that's the majority of the people who use Bluetooth. If you have Bluetooth microphone, anybody? Okay,
Mouse
good.
and keyboard.
Bluetooth phone.
I have it connected to my car, so I get maps, infotainment, and all that other stuff.
Right,
Correct.
but how often do you leave your Bluetooth on your phone at all times when you're not using the Bluetooth?
Oh, never. I always turn it off because of my
Turn it
battery.
off.
On purpose? I mean, sometimes you do it by accident.
Right, but I'm saying like a lot of people, like the average user will just leave the Bluetooth on all the time.
Yeah, when I get out of the car, I forget to turn it off. I mean,
Right.
that's
the issue, that the majority of the times that the people who are going to be hit by this problem are the people who leave it on all the time.
Yeah.
My Bluetooth automatically turns off when I turn my car off. So
Nice. Automation is the best.
Love it.
Oh, Michael's just hacked me. Why have I got a picture of Michael on my phone?
That's not my fault. I sent you at least 30. You should have. If you only got one, I mean, I'm not doing my job.
Wait till your car gets hacked through the Bluetooth.
Yep.
It'll just have another picture of me on it.
I'm excited. It's like RC cars. I'll go for the ride.
So, PZ, do you have a discourse topic you'd like to bring up?
I've been a bit remiss this week. I've been fighting Regolith, so no, I haven't had a chance to look. Sorry.
All right. I will back you up then. Frank, Bill, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, so you made a post in the discourse about Debian info tips and tricks. Can you talk about what you posted there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just like on a pork high, so give me a second.
Pork. Bacon.
I take it you're at a barbecue or something.
I went to a luau, and so we had a whole
Nice
pig, and yeah.
So was that a technical thing? Isn't luau an operating system or something? Or
luau is a style of, it's a whole Hawaiian, obviously,
I know.
style of cooking, and then you cover it, and it is just delightful.
I was just trying to give you a hard time. Sorry.
It's all right. So I just created something in the forum just when we were big on Debian and a few things. And one of the things I posted was the app source generator. And it is if you use Debian, it's really something cool to check out. So basically what you can do is you go to the web page and you can select your closest mirrors. So wherever you are in the world, you can choose which sources you want to use. So if you want to use non-free, you can just do that checkbox and boom. Or if you want to use, just open source free stuff, you can do that. And one of the things you can do is you can add third-party repos automatically. And this just makes it, if you're using Debian, it makes it so much easier to, instead of going in and having to edit some stuff, just makes it really awesome.
It makes Debian usable.
Yeah, it's actually on the website. Just to back Frank up there, it allows you to check off things that you want, and it adds it into the sources app list. I think, is that right?
Yeah.
Think-
So for example, if I want to add Chicken will love this. If I want to choose the Pantheon desktop, I can go through and enable that third-party repo with a checkbox, and it will add the Pantheon desktop to this. And what it does is, once you're done, it'll generate a actual list for you to use, and you just hit generate, and boom, you've got a full list. And then it tells you what you need. You basically need to install curl and wget.
That's correct. Yep.
And then you have a list that you can add that'll have everything you need to have. And if you have backports, and you can do it for SID. So it's really a really cool little thing. And, talking about this more on the topic, if you have a Debian tip, if you use Debian, or if you want to go into the forums and create a topic for like anything, for Arch, Mandrake, OpenSUSE, anything, go make a topic. It doesn't need to be Rocco or Zeb or Eric or I to create these topics. This is for you guys. This is for this entire community. It is not something where you have to wait for us. Please go in and do it. If you're missing out, Steve is on fire.
Yes, he is.
Where do you find it?
So it's easiest thing is if you go to Biddle, Eric has done some magic, and everything from the Discord server, Discourse, Telegram. If you go to Biddle, everything is there.
Yep.
Or go to YouTube and click the link.
I just put a link in for the Discourse in chat. So.
And then on the same, there's a few other little. I mean, there's so much stuff out there that is just available. And please, if you see something, we do it in Telegram all the time. Someone will put something cool in. Just go in, and if there's not a topic, make one and put that stuff in there so we can all, come back and use this. One of the things I think when Eric really got on this, I think it was Dorian was saying something that he was losing. He wasn't able to see some of the stuff that was going on, and Eric just like exploded and redid everything and created all of this wonderment for everyone to enjoy and use. So please go in and use this. And if you use Debian, please go look at the app source generator. It is really outstanding.
Yeah, I'm a heavy Debian user. That's why I asked, and I've never seen this part of the Big Daddy website.
Well, you got to get around, Dan.
I'm too busy struggling with Regolith.
Oh, just to let you know, if you go to tuxdigital.com/biddle, it's right there.
There you go. Somebody had to do it.
Oh, it's over at Tux Digitals.
No, it's not. But sure, why not?
Technically,
why not?
That's becoming a meme.
I was going to say there's probably a hot link to that now.
Speaking of Matt, you just put out a video, dude.
Yeah, I did.
And you are on the hunt
for 2K.
On the chase for 2,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
How close are you?
Last I looked, I was like 6 off from 1,500. So,
that is awesome, dude.
So we're doing a little. I'm thinking about doing a few things. Short version is basically 2K. I'm looking to do some donations to a couple of different projects, either Manjaro, because this is the stuff I use. So Manjaro OBS or Audacity, and then potentially like a hardware giveaway or a software giveaway. I'm not sure which one yet there. So.
Well, I watched the video and you had the idea of a hardware. You said, give you comments. I didn't comment on the video, but I would be glad to donate some games to a software giveaway. So if that interests you, let me know. But I'm going to find your YouTube channel and I'm going to post a link to it.
You sure about that?
Yeah, I am, because
I know all of a sudden my feed is going up with Matt videos. It's like, where the hell did all these come from?
It's in YouTube chat already, Rocco.
Awesome, thank you. So please go subscribe to Dark One's channel. We have to get him over 2,000.
Well, I am trying to have some substance.
There you go. You have none though, so
absolutely not.
All right, Eric, did you listen to Linux for Everyone this week?
I did, and I thought it was a very interesting episode because he talked to Bart and George of Dell, and they talked specifically about the XPS 13 Developer Edition, but then just the idea that of how the Linux culture has sort of lived on at Dell through the years, and how they're really trying to make a push, and it seems like they're starting to get more traction. And we all talk about, the adoption of Linux on the desktop and why don't more people use it. And, the simple fact is that getting PCs with Linux on it is not always easy. And so as great as System 76 is, not a lot of people know who they are, or maybe, if somebody's looking for a laptop, especially a corporation is looking for laptops, they're going to go to someone like Dell or HP or Lenovo. And so the fact that Dell continues to support this project, this internal project to develop systems that run well on Linux, and are now saying, at least Bart and George was saying, that they are going to make a bigger effort of incorporating it into their website, because right now the website doesn't do a great job of calling attention to it. There's basically a couple pages, but otherwise, if you just go to the laptop section, it's not even, you can't even really tell there's an option there.
Right.
So, to me, I think I just find that very interesting that there is a, Dell's been my favorite for years for laptops, and I'm using the XPS 15 and it works. I haven't had many issues, but the idea that you would be able to use, we're talking about Pine and being able to use any version of Linux, and that's more or less what they were saying, is it'll come with Ubuntu, but it'll be, you'll be able to run whatever you need or want to run on it. And, just the fact that they've been taking feedback and getting more ideas from the community, and having the opportunity to just purchase something that is supported out of the box, instead of feeling like sometimes you're fighting uphill against the manufacturer, where they obviously designed something for use with Windows, and if you are going against the grain, then you have problems. So, well, to me, that I'm just, every time I hear something like that, it makes me think, well, maybe we are inching a little closer to the idea that Linux is becoming more known. People are seeing that as a viable option, because the part of it too was, talking about who's your audience, who are the people that are actually buying these. And so, yeah, definitely worth listening to. It's an interesting interview, I thought, and probably the best thing that I listened to this week about Linux.
Well, you can find that at Linux for Everyone, and I will grab the Fireside link for that. That's Jason Evangelo's podcast. And I listened to that interview, and he said that, they had, he uses his personal blog as the landing page for them. And I mean, I'm thinking that I don't know if that's such a good idea or not, but either way, I wish and I hope that they do market it better. And somehow we always fall into this not marketing well thing. And I think Dell has the power, or the, behind it, that they could propel Linux into something huge.
I think this puts still more of a side project for Dell. Those Project Sputnik people are really focused on this, but it feels like Dell as the company itself, it still considers it like a side project.
Well, even if it was a side project, Michael, they're such a huge company that their side project could be huge for Linux.
Yeah, they could.
Well, even calling it a side project, I don't know that that's necessarily. It's probably where it's at right now, but I'm glad they're kind of focusing on a specific set of hardware and kind of restraining it to a single model and stuff, trying to do things right, instead of just saying, hey, we're going to do this across all our models and trying to.
And also the way that they were looking at a particular market of AI and machine learning and research on that side of it. And the fact that if you got one of their higher end laptops, that you would actually be able to just get the whole package of software you would need in order for scientists to begin doing that work. They're supporting that, where you get the system, tell it to install that set of packages, and then boom, like you're literally ready to go. So that's one of the smart things that I think a lot of companies, I mean, PCs are personal for a reason. It's just generalist computing hardware, and Windows is the ultimate generalist operating system. And so Linux is definitely more specialized, and it's smart for them to at least have an idea of a market. It's not the same market as the entire world, but for people who need the power and performance of not only that hardware, but the open source software that would run on top of it, and to be able to just get that from someone is interesting.
I was going to say, I think Dell's take on what they're doing, firstly, Sputnik, it was developers, web devs. It was mostly its initial audience. Now that they're looking at scientists and AI and all the other stuff, I think by them specifically targeting certain audiences that would benefit severely from having a Linux system or an open source approach to things, that is probably the smartest business move they can do. Because if you look at Dell's history prior, let's just throw this on some low end hardware, throw it out to the consumer. They are taking I think they're taking a much smarter business approach to it. And there's always going to be some bleed over into the consumer space eventually in some way, shape, or form, because these guys are using it on the daily for their grind.
Well, those precision laptops too are no joke. I mean, those are some serious high-end equipment, so that's what those guys need to do crunch those kind of numbers. So
I'm saying it's a side project, because if you look at, like, if you go to Dell.com, good luck finding any.
Well, that's what they talked about, Michael, was that he said that they need to do a better job of that. And apparently the new VP of marketing, in the past, they had to fight to even get like one sentence right. And so he's saying that now the new VP of marketing came to him and said, we need to get some verbiage in here, and there needs to be something called out on this page. And we also need to fix the search so that if someone searches for Linux, that they get the products. So they recognize that, I mean, their website is not great. And I think they recognize that it's not doing them any favors. So,
I mean, that's true. It's just like, this is like I think the 7th or 8th generation, right? And I think it's great that Dell's finally taking notice that people actually want these.
Yeah, 9th, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so it's just it seems like it's taking a while though, but I'm glad that they're finally paying attention.
Yeah, go on, Bob.
Okay, thank you. When I got my XPS 13, I got the developers edition. At the time, and this was mid 2014, and hopefully they've done a better job since. I actually had to call and order it because there was no way. I was not a big corporation, so there was no way I could even see it on there. And hopefully they've changed that, because I think if they make it so that everyone can see it, not just if you're a big corporation or whatever, it would actually open the market up for even more.
I mean, if I was them, look, they've got whole teams of people working on their website and stuff. So if I was them, I would be targeting Linux laptop, right? I mean, it wouldn't be that hard to do. They're Dell, they've got the credibility and the, so I think they can very easily make some changes that will rectify that. And Barb, he did specifically say that they're working on those things.
Yeah, because that was one of the biggest things. I finally got disgusted. I knew about it and I was able to find it, but to actually order it, I had to call. And that was really screwy. And I think a lot of people just give up.
Bill?
I just wanted to correct Eric. He made one factual error during his presentation. I listened to Jason's show. It was great, but it was the second best Linux thing that I heard this week.
Okay.
The first best, greatest Linux thing I heard this week was some crazy guy got on Linux Spotlight and talked for like 2 hours.
I'll second that notion.
That was the best. No lie, that was the best thing that I listened to all week Linux wise.
Yeah.
I just wanted to agree.
So you listen to two things and you're picking the one that you like better. Obviously, there was more stuff out there.
Be fair to Eric, he didn't technically listen to that one, so that's why he didn't include it.
If you haven't seen the Linux Spotlight from this week, we released it on Wednesday. Eric and me sat down for an hour and 40 minutes, hour and 45 minutes, and chatted about Linux. So you should go check that out. It was a great conversation.
That was really good. I had a lot of fun watching that.
It was a really good.
Now you all know how weird I am.
Yep.
I think you already had suspicions, but now you know.
Sometimes weirdness confirmed.
That's perfectly okay, Eric. You fit in with the rest of us.
Yep.
All right. Anything anybody wants to bring up before we go?
I will say real quickly that I've noticed that over the past weeks the Linux community changed a lot. I also feel like that more podcasts are starting to show up, Linux for everyone, and everyone is more together now, and I think it's really starting to grow better. So because you were asking for something to say, I just thought I would throw that out there.
Cool.
Thank you, Joshua. All right. That is going to wrap it up for this week. We are trying Regolith again for a second week, and hopefully I will have time to jump right in. Before we go, somebody give me the best tutorial, best thing to learn Regolith.
www.co.uk.
Wow.
So the first thing you want to do is that you want to install on a virtual machine. You want to install on a virtual machine and follow the whole entire thing. It might be your resource and install Regolith or whatever. And once it's done, and you reboot into your awesome fancy.
Okay.
So actually, you should check out Arco Linux i3 tutorials on YouTube. Those are pretty good if you want to learn i3, which is basically the point of Regolith.
What about tuxdigital.com/Regolith?
Does that exist, Michael?
It doesn't at the moment.
Okay.
It might soon.
Yes.
Here I can.
You can go to the Regolith website, and they have a key bindings page that you probably can print off before you get started.
Mm-hmm.
Super shift
I
question mark.
a long ways because you only really need about 5 keys to really get going.
Yeah, super shift question mark or PCTLC. Just
that
saying.
does not always come back. I can't get that question mark thing back on my screen.
Chicken.
Okay, so I wanted to kind of talk about something because I listened to, I'm catching up on Linux Unplugged, which is a Jupiter Broadcasting podcast presentation, whatever you want to call it. And one of the things that they brought up in there was that a lot of people don't realize how much work goes into making a podcast or a news source cycle, whatever you want to call it. And it does take a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. It takes effort. And it takes genuine interest to make something that's really good. But furthermore, it takes engagement with the community and understanding of what people are interested in. It takes an understanding of your audience and how you want to present things. And it also takes a lot of time, effort, and even money to investigate sources, investigate different things that are going on, projects, doing interviews, meetups, things like that. There's a lot of work that's being poured into media in general in regards to Linux. Destination Linux, I mean, you guys do a ton of stuff. And it's a week long of just compiling things from everywhere. And you guys go through it and make sure that you're not just spouting crap into the air. And
sometimes
these things are I think these things are definitely in shorter supply than they should be. So I think there are some very good publications that we have available to us in regards to podcasts and videos. And I think that showing our support for them is definitely something that we should do more often. And yeah, I'm just grateful to have quality content creators like that around.
Listen, as soon as they get Zeb back on Destination Linux, I'll start watching it again. All right.
All right. So there's a project, not only Regolith, but there's a project we need to do for next week, and that is your top 3 or 5 podcasts. Bring it next week.
Okay.
All right.
I love it.
Alrighty.
All right. That's it for us, but everybody gets a last word. As always, PZ.
Well, it's funny that Eric should say that because I am super excited that I am back on Destination Linux tomorrow. It's been a weird 4 weeks where I haven't been able to talk to my friends and buddies over there. So really looking forward to that. So catch that when Michael puts it out on one day next week. Because as Shipping said, podcasts are really difficult to produce. So everybody have a great week. And thank you, Rocco, for producing this. As always, it's my favorite show of the week. Bar Destination Linux.
Got it. It's all good. Thank you, Tony. You're next. You didn't say nothing all night.
I was awake, honest.
Last word, brother.
I have a request.
Yes. Shoot.
The next distro challenge. Is it possible to have something I might actually be able to work with?
Wow, dude.
Okay, let's give you Fedora 30. Done.
I can use Fedora 30. I've tried that.
Well, see, Tony, you see how this works now. You go into the discourse forums and you post a distro that you want to up there. There's actually a forum, is there not, Eric, in the forums to suggest?
Actually, it's on the website itself, on the Biddle page towards the bottom where the challenges are listed. So you're welcome to go on the discourse forum. I would love to have you there. It's a more long form discussion.
I do pop in every now and again, but I don't really have a lot to say. And when I first went on there, it took me quite a few visits before I worked out how to actually introduce myself. This is the problem us newbies have, working out how to do these things. But I will pop in and have another look. But
go ahead,
sorry,
Tony.
I was just going to say, thanks for doing this again, Rocco. I really appreciate it. It is something I really look forward to every week. It's my favorite one out of all of them, closely followed by Destination Linux. And I look forward to next week. And we'll see how we go from there. So take care, everyone, and hopefully see you all next week.
All right, I am going to post in the YouTube chat the Biddle section of the BigDaddyLinux.com site, which if you scroll down, you'll see the submit a distro challenge. You want to submit a distro challenge? Everybody is more than welcome to.
All right, Slackware, here comes.
Mr. Appreciate. Last word.
I want to say thank you once again for allowing me to be on this. I appreciate hanging out with all of you tonight. Mostly listening, but I really enjoyed it. I do also some Linuxy things on my own, and you can check it out at tuxdigital.com/cubiclenate.
Yep.
Perfect. Dan, last word.
Hey, thanks for allowing me back. It's good to be back. It's been a bit. I've been away, but it's good to be here with all my friends. And excellent discussion tonight. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, I'm going to give Regolith a little more of a workout this week, I hope, and maybe have some more follow-up for that. So look forward to next week.
Nice. Colin, last word.
Well, I'd like to dispute your hour and 40-minute sit down with Eric because the video goes for an hour and 45. There definitely had to be a lot of cutting and seaming together some of that as well. So I reckon you guys sat down for a lot longer than an hour and 40 minutes, Rocco. I'm disputing that. And
well,
yes, it was a lot longer than...
I didn't even talk about the post show that we talked about.
It was a
and
bit
that was
casual.
way longer than mine, Eric. It was much longer than mine, I have to say. So I didn't take up as much of Rocco's time. Anyway, love today. Always love being here. And see you all next week. Thanks, Rocco and Zed.
Eric,
Colin, you also did have to go change his shirt.
Eric, last word.
Yeah, there was a little bit of an incontinuity there. Yeah,
there was, but I had to put that in there, dude.
I know. And just so you know, Rocco egged me on. Like I would have been happy with shorter answers. No, he's like, well, what do you think? You know,
it was like pulling teeth. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, so we get to the end and he's like, got anything else to add? And it's like, really? You want more? Like, come on. No, that was a lot of fun. It really was. And he sent a questionnaire ahead of time and I spent hours filling it out. And it was very sort of cathartic to think about these things in great sort of depth. And I really enjoyed that. I don't often sit and just sort of ponder those types of things. So it was great. And as for me, I've been sort of ramping up my YouTube stuff. I'm posting videos, streaming. Zeb was having too much fun with Surge doing Gen 2, so I figured, hey, why not install Slackware?
Oh, geez.
Yeah, gypsy for the win, eh?
Yeah. Nothing like a Frenchman shouting commands at you.
No, you're typing too fast.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Zeb, your comment in there where it was like slow down and just listen to it. Anyway, I'm gonna keep doing that kind of stuff. I really appreciate you guys coming and stopping by and looking at my stuff, and I'm gonna keep doing it. So have a great week, and I'll see you all again next week.
Very nice. Chris, last word?
Well, didn't really have much to say this week, but I guess I'll save it up for next week. Had a really good, you've been talking to us about having good discussion going, and we had a really good one going today, and I think it was a good, interesting information. And look forward to seeing you next week.
Awesome. Chicken, last word.
Don't pour beans in the sink.
Good thinking. Very good thinking.
Oh.
You taking lessons from Joshua or something?
Barbara, last word.
Okay. I want to thank you, Rocco, for this. I also think it's a great idea that we have the devs when we're doing these distro challenges. It's really good to have the devs actually here because they can explain what they've done or why they've done it, or yes, they know that this is a problem or whatever. So I think that's a great idea, and we should try to encourage more of them to show when we discuss a distro.
I totally agree, Barb. I would love to have the dev for every distro we run, although, I don't know if they'll all be available, but we're going to work on it.
Yeah.
Derek, last word.
I wanted to say thank you for having me on here. One thing I want to let people know is that you can look on the website for i3. They have a very good documentation. They also have a chat room on Matrix that you can be able to get help on. It's not exactly like Regolith, but it will give you at least the most of the information that you can be able to find to be able to help you.
Very nice. Dan Kelly.
Well, Rocco, I want to thank you for another wonderful show tonight. We had a lot of great content. Like Tony, I'm pretty much a newbie, if you haven't figured that out. And the support that we give each other is priceless. And I just wanted to say thanks for the support and any questions that I've asked that you've been able to answer for me. So that's my 2 cents.
Yep. You can join the Telegram group. You can go on the discourse, and there are so many people here willing to help. I think it's awesome. All right, Vince, last word, brother.
Thanks again, Rocco and Zeb. I am absolutely addicted to the community. It is fantastic, and thanks for asking, Big Papa Peppermint. Thanks to Eric and Serge, I actually was up till 3 a.m. last night installing Slack myself. And so if I've disappeared for a week, then you know where I've gone. And just one more thing. Next weekend for us, it's Father's Day down here. So happy Father's Day, Colin.
Thanks, mate. Same to you.
All right. Ivan, last word.
Thank you, everybody, for having me here back again today. I really enjoy the time. Not only watching, but being here as well with you when I can. And I really appreciate that opportunity, Rocco. I thank you so much. I think this is such a good service to the community in general. And I really appreciate what you guys are doing. Having this time available for people to come and just say anything that comes up, not only about the distros, but around the community aspect of it, which is so important. I enjoyed Eric's video with you a ton. I mean, I was laughing a lot when I was watching it, and I really appreciate the content. Thank you so much, everybody, for that.
Awesome. Big Pod, you didn't say a word all night long, dude.
Yeah, didn't say much. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Matt.
Matt?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I'm doing about 6 other things. As always, Rocco, appreciate the time and effort that you guys, like Eric and everybody else here, puts into the website and just making an excellent community. It's really fun to be a part of this, be on the live stream, the after show, and FYI Discord. Hey, Rocco, where can they find that?
You can find that at BigDaddyLinux.com/Discord.
And as always, just appreciate all the community as a whole. So that's all I got.
Awesome. Bash, last word.
Thanks for the stream as always, and we will see you about next week. I'm hoping to get the chance to check out Regolith maybe, and then also maybe even Manjaro i3, just depending on time constraints. But hoping to check it out, see if it cooperate with my workflow at all.
Nice. Jonathan, last word.
Don't have much to say. Check out Discourse, check out Discord, and long live Linux.
There you go. Steve.
All right, since Paul's not here, someone's got to be silly. Come for the Linux, stay for the peppermint. Thanks, Rocco.
Kevin.
Hey, thanks for having me. I know I didn't have a whole lot to say tonight, but it's been great hanging out with everybody. I'm glad everyone got the chance to experience a tiling window manager. They're a lot of fun. And then for everybody watching, if you haven't yet, come check us out in the forums at discourse.bigdaddylinux.com. Join us on Telegram at bigdaddylinux.com/telegram, or chat with us after the show, as previously mentioned, at bigdaddylinux.com/discord.
I love it. Bill, last word.
Rocco, Zeb, thank you for being here and doing all of this stuff. And really the only thing I want to say is take some time, go to cubiclenate.com and go to Blatherings. And there is an excellent write-up on XFCE. It just went up. It's really worth reading.
Very nice.
Did the whole thing make it up, or did part of it get deleted?
No. I said I'm following the Barb standard.
Thank you.
Joshua, it is finally your turn. Last word.
Okay, so you're gonna say finally after you move me to the waiting room for some reason, but besides
Well, some
that,
people can't be quiet while other people are trying to have their last word in, Joshua.
I thought I muted myself. Okay, well, I'm sorry. So Regolith was fun, and I'm glad at least most people liked i3. Others had a little bit of a hard experience. Hopefully, we'll turn that into good experiences for next week. And check out at Nixcraft on Twitter with their Fedora meme, where Fedora users must be called Feds. Okay, and aside from that, www.bigdaddylinux.com. Long live Linux. Good night.
All right, that is going to wrap it up for us. Again, we are trying Regolith Linux for a second week. Bring your favorite podcasts for next week as we compile them all. And check out this coming week's Linux Spotlight, where I get to talk to Derek from DistroTube.
Ooh,
nice.
Other than that, we will see you next week. Long live Linux.
Long live Linux.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Hey, everyone.
Bye.
See ya.
Insert
Bye.
language.
Bye.
Thing. Bye.
Good night.